Okay, hello everyone. Today's video is going to be a beginner's guide to the supplementary retirement scheme. And this has been something I think some of the people who frequent this channel has been asking for. So I do cover some material on the supplementary retirement scheme for the students of my early retirement masterclass. And so I've decided to spruce up my lecture materials and presented here in the form of a very short tutorial. Okay. All right. So what's the motivation for the Supplementary Retirement Scheme or SRS? I think for a start, we should understand the concept of a tax relief, all right, which is the primary motivation. A tax relief occurs when you do some charity work, you voluntarily contribute to your CPF, or of course, if you participate in the SRS. Okay, so what happens is you can reduce your earned income as calculated by IRAS at the end of the year. And so if your income is lowered in that calculation, it will result in a substantial amount of tax savings. All right. And before we start talking about things like the SRS, a reminder that there is an annual cap for tax relief. That's about $80,000. And you can also access this URL to calculate your tax savings here. Right? Okay, so what happens if you participate in the SRS? The amount of taxes you pay will be reduced. So for example, if you earn $120,000 a year, you have personal tax relief, like being a family man, you do NS, the government might give you a $10,000 discount to your annual income, all right? And then if you were to contribute $15,300, which is the maximum allowed under the SRS, okay, then what will happen is that this will reduce your so-called annual income tax salary substantially. Okay, so without SRS in the left-hand column of this table, right, the total amount of taxes payable would be $6,915, but because you have contributed $15,300 into SRS, the amount of salary that you have is lower, at least from the perspective of the taxman, all right, and so you only need to pay $5,155. And so your tax savings is substantial at about $1,700 for that particular year. And the savings is no joke, 25.44%. Okay, so tax relief may not make a lot of sense if your income is below $40,000 a year, right? But if you earn above $80,000 every year, then it's actually criminal not to consider the supplementary retirement scheme in your retirement planning choices. All right. And actually, one of my big regrets is that I'm so obsessed with my own version of financial independence in my 20s, is that I have sort of ignored my SRS until much later in life. I mean, it didn't affect me, of course, but if I had been regularly putting money into my SRS in the past, I would say that my overall net worth would be a lot higher, and there'll be a certain amount that would be able to compound all the way into my statutory retirement age. Okay, so what is the supplementary retirement scheme or SRS? You can set aside $15,300 every year. Okay, and to do so, open an SRS account on your banking portal website. Okay, if you are DBS, then go into the iBanking website. You can open an SRS account there. Okay, and then after that, you can transfer $1 from your savings account into your SRS to activate it. Now, why is activation so important? Okay, the activation is important because you want to lock down your statutory retirement age, right? When you put your money into SRS, withdrawals before your statutory retirement age is penalized at 5%, and then it becomes fully taxable, or it becomes fully taxable, all right? So there's no point in withdrawing your SRS before your statutory retirement age unless you need the money for a serious emergency, all right? Take note of that, all right? The current statutory retirement age is 63. I've locked it at 62 when I activated my account. If you do it now, you can lock it at 63. But if you delay until the 1st of July 2026, your statutory retirement age becomes 64. All right, so please move your $1 into SRS, lock in your statutory retirement age so that you can get your money out at an earlier time. Okay, now after the statutory retirement age, only half the withdrawals are taxable. So theoretically, if you're jobless, you can draw $40,000 tax-free every year. All right, isn't it wonderful? Right, you save your taxes when you're younger, you don't pay so much taxes. But then when you're older, you can pull the money out tax-free. Okay. Now, do note that withdrawals must be made within a decade. So you might want to limit your SRS to about $400,000, which probably isn't a problem for most people. Right? What can you do with your SRS funds? Now, do note that when you put your money into the SRS account, the interest rate is abysmally low at 0.05%. Right? What you should do is you should open a traditional brokerage account with a CDP to invest your SRS funds. All right. Now, when you open a traditional brokerage account, a lot of disadvantages of that will take place. One trade could cost about $25. Okay. So once again, if you pick a low turnover strategy like a dividends investing strategy, it's not a problem paying the $25 because you've got tax savings and you've got dividends to sort of support you for the next decade or so, right? And of course, you need to go into your traditional broker website to link your SRS account with that traditional brokerage website. All right, you require some steps that you need to Google in order to do that. And once you're able to do this, right, the broker will say, no, when you buy a stock, do you want to use cash to buy it, or do you want to use SRS to buy it? All right, so that's very useful in that way. Okay. The usual blue chip and REITs listed on SGX can be invested with these SRS funds with dividends credited back into your SRS account. So I'm sorry, the dividends will not go back to your savings account. It will go back to your SRS account, and then you need to recycle it and you need to sort of use it to redeploy it into more stocks in the future. All right. The list of stocks you can buy for your SRS is the same as that of the CPF investment scheme. So I've conveniently put up the link for you to buy it. Not every single stock can be bought with your SRS money, but generally speaking, if you stick to our local real estate investment trusts, business trusts, those are denominated in Singapore dollars, as well as banks and blue chips, no problem at all right, for your SRS funds. Some final points on SRS. Some folks recently on news media have been complaining that when you hit your statutory retirement age, withdrawals need to be done at the banking branches and outlets. Authorities are promising to look at this issue. I would be very surprised if this is not resolved by the time I hit 62 years of age. Right? I'm currently 50 at the moment, so I guess authorities have 12 years to solve this problem. Right? Otherwise, talk to your MP, apply a little bit of pressure to make this happen. It is ludicrous for senior citizens to have to queue to take out their SRS monies. All right, make sure that you complain and make a lot of noise over this issue. Okay, now as you're trying to withdraw as low a tax penalty as possible, you are subject to policy risk, right? Like the income tax rate in the future. So, for example, and I see this as a positive, right? If the income tax, the lowest marginal income tax kicks in at 30,000 instead of 20,000, then what would happen is that you can actually withdraw more money every year from your SRS account. Now, don't count on this, but I think that it is high time that we revise that lower limit, right? Because I think that Singaporeans who earn $20,000 to $30,000, they shouldn't be paying income tax, right? They're fairly low income already, and I think maybe that 4% should start, only after 30K, right? Okay, now, also, this is also a very good reminder that along with Singapore savings bonds, SRS is a compelling reason not to ignore investing with CDP and local brokerages, all right? So I'm a big fan of CDP, even though I pay a lot of money to trade, but because I employ a very low turnover strategy, right? I love having my money and my stocks in CDP so that I can attend annual general meetings, but the dividends just go into my bank account on the payment date, right? Even if I'm a coma lying in the hospital, I still get paid, all right? If it is anything that you've learned from my video today, gentle reminder, please open an account, put $1 into it, lock in your statutory retirement age at age 63. Do it too late and it'll become 64 years old. right? Might be okay for some people, but for other people, you might want to see your money as soon as you can. Okay? If you want to learn more, right, I conduct a 5-day course on early retirement that consolidates everything about dividends investing, CPF, SRS, a little bit of insurance as well, right, and investment classes into one course with Dr. Well, right? If you want to come for my preview, search for the terms ERM intro, take the click on the first link, and I should be able to see you in my next video. All right, thank you very much.